Welcome back to IAS Net Study, and this is the ethics series, and this is the 28th video in this ethics series. In the last video, we talked about virtue ethicist. We had a detailed discussion of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Now, in this video, we are going to talk about philosophies or philosophers after Aristotle, and especially we are going to focus on the medieval philosophers, medieval Western philosophers. So, let's get into the discussion of this. After Aristotle, you need to focus. There are two important philosophies. I'll just give the brief idea regarding these two philosophies, and then we are going to take up the medieval philosophers. Right, the two important philosophies. The first philosophy is Epicureanism. What is this Epicureanism? And the founder is Epicurus, and again, he is a Greek philosopher. The basic understanding of Epicureanism is that, see, there is one terminology you need to remember: hedonism. This school of thought, Epicureanism, it supports this idea of hedonism. Hedonism is that ultimate goal of a life is pleasure. Having that pleasure is pleasure as the highest good. So objective, here it is objective of philosophy. It is that to attain happy and tranquil life. So how exactly define this happiness? How exactly define this tranquil life? You need to have a peace of mind. You need to have a freedom from fear. There should not be any fear, even with respect to death. Also, there should not be any fear. See, if you have that fear, you cannot have that calm and content. The inner calmness, inner contentness will not be there. So, in order to have that peace of mind, you need to have that freedom from fear, and also there should be absence of bodily pain also, and even it also rejects that excessive desire also, and then self-sufficiency, that rejection of excessive desire, self-sufficiency, and friendship. All these things eventually lead to the happy life. All these things eventually lead to the tranquility in life. So the concept, the idea is that hedonism, it is that ultimate pleasure is the ultimate goal of the life. See, if you look at the Epicureanism, there are two aspects you need to remember. The one thing is it talks about two things: supreme good and supreme evil. And what is the supreme good according to the Epicureanism? It is the pleasure. And what is the supreme evil according to this Epicureanism? It is the pain. You should focus on achieving the supreme good. Supreme good is the pleasure. So focus on achieving the supreme good in your life, and you should avoid the supreme evil. Supreme evil is nothing but the pain. You should avoid that. So this is a simple ideology, simple objective of this particular philosophy. Ultimate aim is to pleasure, and ultimate supreme evil is to avoid this pain. And what are the principles? This is a philosophy. And what are the principle? It is pleasure and pain are the measures of good and evil. Avoid unnecessary desires. Even unnecessary desires also lead to the evil. The to unnecessary desires, it will lead you towards supreme evil, towards pain. So even unnecessary desire should also be avoided, and seek natural and simple pleasures. So these are ethical principles of Epicureanism. And see, I told you that there should not be fear. That fear is with respect to death and the god also. He told Epicurus, he mentions that, see, death is end of the body, accept it. Death is a part of life, end of the life. So accept this death, and you should not be in fear. Death should not be fear. So if you have this aspect of fear, if you are afraid of the death, again, you are not going to have a peaceful life. You are not going to have a content life. If you are not peaceful from inside, again, the you cannot achieve the supreme end, supreme pleasure, that is, sorry, supreme uh, end, that is pleasure. Again, control this fear, especially with respect to death, as well as the god also. See, he mentions that god is not going to intervene in the human affairs. He's not going to interfere in that. Neither he is going to reward nor he is going to punish. So remove this thought also with respect to the fear, religious fear, all these things, remove that also, and remove the fear for the death also. Live a happy life. Expect or accept simple pleasures, natural pleasures. Don't have excessive desires. Again, excessive desires, eventually this will lead to the supreme evil, that is pain. So remove that also. And ultimately, the key idea, if you look at the Epicureanism, it is live wisely, seek modest pleasure, cultivate friendships, free yourself from fear of life or tranquility. Right, this is with respect to Epicureanism. And the next school of thought, of the philosophy after Aristotle, is Stoicism. Stoicism is that, see, there are four principles you need to remember with respect to the Stoicism. The first principle is that there are two. The aspect is that four principle I tell you, one thing is about nature, second thing is about controlling what you can control, third thing is your emotion, fourth is the virtues. Let me explain you in a simple way. Stoicism tells you that there are certain factors in your life you can control, and focus on only those things which you can control. What you can control in your life? I can control my emotions. I cannot control emotions of other person around me. I cannot control my environment. I can control my actions, my decisions. I cannot control your actions and your decisions. It's impossible. So stoicism tells you that focus on those things which you can control. So if you control your emotions, eventually this will lead to the good life, because you're not bothered about what other person thinks. You're not bothered about what environment or the people around me thinking. So it gives you peace, it gives you happiness. So ultimately it leads to the happy life. Both epicureanism and stoicism, they talk about happiness, happy life only. See, this epicureanism, I mentioned the terminology of hedonism. Hedonism, here you're mainly focusing on the pleasure, but here stoicism, here also, but here stoicism, it again, it is talking about happy life. Both the stoicism and the epicureanism, they're not talking about something reality, universal philosophy, universal truth. They're not talking about it. Both these school of thoughts talking about happy life. You want to be happy, be happy. Have some virtues in your life, stay happy, have that tranquility in life, and don't fear for anything. So this is what both is the core ideology, core philosophy of both these things. And here stoicism very precisely talks about controlling your emotions. If you can control your emotions, you can control your state of mind. There will be peace. If there is a peace, it leads to the happy life. So here stoicism, again, this school of thought, it is not worried about universal reality, ultimate truth. No, it is not worried about all these things. This philosophy, these kind of philosophies are called Hellenistic philosophies, where they predominantly focus on individual happiness. They are not worried about universal truth, God, all these things. They mainly focus on individual happiness. And one of the four principal school of philosophy in ancient Athens, alongside Plato, Aristotle, Epicurus. And the core idea, the Stoicism teaches that destructive emotions can arise from errors in judgment, that a wise person can achieve inner peace by living in accordance with reason and virtue. So your life inculcate this rationality, the reason. Take your actions based on logical reasoning, and also inculcate certain positive virtues. He has also talked about virtues like justice, temperance. Stoicism also, this school of thought also supports these virtues. And goal of life, ultimate goal of life, both in Epicureanism as well as the Stoicism, it is the tranquility, happiness in life. So tranquility and moral excellence by understand what is within our control and accepting what is not. There are few things which in within my control, I accept that and I implement those things. I focus on my inner happiness, peace of mind. There are few things which are not in my control. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to ignore it. The more I understand this reality, the more peaceful I am. The more I have that happiness in my life, I move towards the tranquility, right? And there is a terminology, the sage. The sage is the person who has that moral and intellectual perfection. That moral, the moral knowledge, I can say. The sage is a person who has that moral knowledge, and person who can control the emotions. He knows that which emotions are going to detrimental for my happiness, which emotions are positive, which emotions are negative, and I am controlling. I am supporting positive emotions. I am removing negative emotions from my psyche. So here, because of my understanding, I am a sage and I remove all these negative unwanted emotions, and I only support, I only inculcate positive emotions in my life. And virtues, again, virtues, he talks about the same, whatever the Plato talks about, the four cardinal virtues. Here the Stoicism also support these virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. And the Stoicism later influenced Roman philosophers. You can go through with the names, continues to inspire modern ethical thought and personal resilience practices. So in a simple way, Epicureanism, one school of thought after Aristotle, and the Stoicism is another school of thought after Aristotle. Next, let's get into the discussion of medieval philosophy. Medieval philosophy from 5th century to 16th century. See, 5th century starts after fall of Roman Empire and it continues till the Renaissance. Renaissance and the especially England and the Western Europe. till 16th century. After 16th century, the individual liberty, all these ideas of freedom, rights, all these things have emerged. Ends based mechanism, means based ethics, all these things have emerged. Till that, from 5th century to 16th century, we are going to have a discussion. The ethical renaissance or a ethical understanding can be seen under modern medieval philosophy. See, the major aspect of medieval philosophy is the religion. The spread of Christianity, it was very much dynamic. It was very much uh, a core of the medieval philosophy actually. And this Christianity or a theological aspect, it shaped the philosophical thought. And predominantly, you need to focus on two thinkers, that is Saint Augustine and Thomas Aquinas. These two are quite important. Rest of that you can ignore it. It will be too much to. Again, the same thing will be repeated here also. The religion, God, of these things. The reason we are focusing on these two individuals, Saint Augustine and Thomas Aquinas, is with respect to the war theories they have given, the ideas they have given. That is quite important from exam perspective. So let's talk about Saint Augustine and Thomas Aquinas. And what are the characteristics of medieval philosophy? I told you that it's a theology, it's a religious doctrines, the inculcation, the mix of these religious ideas and the the already philosophical discussions which were there. The philosophical discussions were of Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. It was already there, and to their virtues, the rationalism, the new religious ideas were inculcated, and it gave the medieval philosophy, it gave rise to the medieval philosophy based on this theology. And it explored question of faith, reason, morality. Usually this medieval philosophy, I told you that the religious aspect, the theological aspects are there. One side there is a rationality, another side there is a faith. So the combination of faith and rationality can be seen in the medieval philosophy. See, usually faith is what you cannot question it, you cannot, there are superstition, there are blind beliefs in faith. So faith, where you cannot question, and rationality is another extreme where you question everything. So now medieval philosophy, it combines these two ideas, faith and rationality. Two opposites are, they've taken two opposites and they've mixed these two opposites. And did they work? Yes, it worked to some extent. We are going to have a discussion in this further. But here the two extremes are combined here, laid the foundation for later Renaissance and modern philosophy. Eventually, for almost 10 centuries, these theological based philosophies were in the discussion actually. And here, the key idea here is the medieval philosophy represents period where reason and the faith were harmonized, shaping Western intellectual history. Now, let's talk about Saint Augustine first. There are two concepts you need to remember. One is free will, and the second is ethics, the war theory. Let's talk about free will. See, usually what happened during the medieval philosophy, a lot of them were questioning the concept of God. That question was that why is there evil in the world? Why is there evil in the earth? There are people who are doing good, and people, if there is a God, only good should be there. What is the necessity of existence of evil? It means that there is no God. These kind of religious question, they were questioning the church, they were questioning the religious doctrines, they were questioning the capabilities of God only. If God is omnipresent, omnipotent, why God could not able to eliminate all these evils, all these negatives from the society? These questions were posed. So for to counter them, to give answers, Saint Augustine, he came up with a concept of free will. He mentions that, see, God has created human beings and he has given the knowledge also. The human beings are rational beings. Now you have that ability to distinguish between what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is evil. Now God has given the free will. So if God has given me free will, if I am doing something evil, it is on me, it is not on the God. You cannot blame God for what I am doing. I am doing something wrong, you blame me, not the God. This is what they told. Free will has been given to the human beings. So human beings are committing negatives, beings are committing something good, immoral, unethical, and you cannot blame the God. God is not going to interfere. He has given the freedom, and you have the freedom to choose your actions. You have the freedom to choose your decision. So he gave the concept of free will. When someone commits wrong, the responsibility lies with individual, not with the God. This is one concept with Saint Augustine, and second concept is with respect to war. See, the medieval philosophers, they supported the idea of war with some conditions. And what are those condition? Condition is that I have to defend myself. Yes, I can go to a war if I have to defend myself. If somebody is attacking me, then I cannot submit. I cannot say that violence is bad. I cannot say that this is going to cause the destruction, death. See, if I have to defend myself, if I have to defend my country, then I have to go to the war because I have been attacked by other person. So here it is a moral necessity. So Saint Augustine told that war is a moral necessity if I have to defend myself. But another condition is that war has to be declared by legitimate authority. People has given elected a government has to declare the war, not some kind of fringe elements in society. No, that there should be a legitimate authority, and that legitimate authority has to accept these wars, that too based on defense, protecting myself or defending myself. And if a war ultimately leads to the peace, if the result is pursuit of peace, then it is considered as ethical. So ultimately, it is not the destruction, it is the peace. War is going to lead to the peace. So it is the defensive measure. So the war, it is going to restore or preserve peace. Peace. It is not with respect to preemptive aggression. These are some conditions given by Saint Augustine with respect to war. So free will and the war theory. Next, let's talk about Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas talked about virtues. One is cardinal virtues, another is theological virtues. Cardinal virtues, the same virtues given by Plato. See, I'll tell you one thing. Saint Augustine, he inculcated Aristotle's teachings with theology, and Thomas Aquinas, he inculcated Plato with theology. Plato talked about cardinal virtues. He also mentioned the cardinal virtues: prudence, temperance, justice, and fortitude. Along with that, he gave the theological virtues also. Theological virtues, what are the theological virtues? Faith, hope, charity, love. These are some of the theological virtues. So if your actions are based on faith, if your decisions are based on hope, if your actions are based on charity or love, then it is moral. If it's not, it is immoral. So there are cardinal virtues, there are theological virtues. Here, this is what they are trying to do. One side there is a faith, another side there is a reasoning, there is a rationality. They are combining these both ideas. And here, Aquinas provided framework of moral reasoning. Here, if you look at the Saint Augustine, we'll talk about when we discuss the comparison. See, I'll tell you one thing, that Saint Augustine, he talks about love of God, and here he talks about rationality. There, your actions, you're doing this thing because you have a devotion, you have a love for the God. But here, Thomas Aquinas, he mentions that you have to do this because of moral reasoning. Devotion is there, but along with that, moral reasoning should also be there. See, when you have moral reasoning, you should use this moral reasoning to understand the eternal law, the concept of eternal law. Eternal law is nothing but divine, or the law of God, these kind of things. Saint Augustine mentions that you follow eternal law due to the love. This is Augustine. And Aquinas, Thomas Aquinas, he mentions that you follow the eternal law because of rationality. So there's a difference between Augustine and Aquinas here. So he told that again, both of them supported this eternal law. It is a divine, something divine law is there, that is there. They tells that this eternal law, it is a divine law. This is given by the God. So in order to follow that, love, there should be love and devotion according to Augustine, Saint Augustine. According to Thomas Aquinas, he mentioned that use the moral reasoning and follow the eternal law. So here he talks about moral reasoning to connect to eternal law. There he talks about love and devotion to connect to the eternal law. Both of them ultimately they're talking about devotion, they're talking about religion, they're talking about the eternal law. And he emphasized that Thomas Aquinas emphasized that moral behavior is guided by both reason and the divine law. So he is integrating philosophy with Christian theology, right? And again, comparison, I told you that Saint Augustine is talking about love of God, and Aquinas is talking about reasoning, moral reasoning. And both respect God deeply, but they differ in their approaches. Augustine prioritized love, while Aquinas prioritizes rational comprehension. Ultimately, the end goal for both of them, it is with respect to eternal law, it is with respect to the divine law, devotion, divinity, all these things. See, here also Augustine, he also expanded this idea of war theory, and he systemized the just war theory. He gave the certain more conditions that war it has to be declared by legitimate authority, the ruler, kings, government, they have to declare the war. And another thing is, it has to be for the just cause. It is not that offensive mechanism, or you want to conquer the land. This is not the case. It has to be just cause. Just cause is what, that somebody is attacking me, I have to defend myself, there is the preemptive attack, I have to protect my citizen. For these kind of cause, you can go for a war. So to defend common good and to punish wrongdoing. So this is the second condition given by Aquinas. And the third is right intention. Intention should be right. Intention is pursuit of peace. It is not the power, it is not the acquiring territory, it is not acquiring wealth. No, that is not the case. It is right intention. Intention should be pursuit of peace. Intention should be pursuit of justice. It is not the revenge, it is not the conquest. So this is what a just war theory. So when it comes to the medieval philosophers, two aspects you need to remember. One is theology, especially the faith, theological virtues, and second aspect is just war theory. These two are important. The rest of the thing is not that much important. So that's the reason I'm mainly focusing on these two aspects, and know the difference between Augustine and Thomas Aquinas, right? And connected to the just war to moral values, prudence, justice, fortitude, showing war must align with reason and God's law. Both philosophers link ethics, divine law, human responsibility to warfare. Again, just war theory. Augustine emphasizes love and preservation of peace. Aquinas emphasizes rational moral guidance with respect to war. See, in the war theory also, love of God, devotion with respect to Saint Augustine and Thomas Aquinas, it is the rational guidance. Again, both of them, justice of war, both of them, divine law, eternal law. And together they laid the medieval foundation for ethical rulers of warfare, still referred in modern discussions of international law. Now, let's move to the final important philosopher, Niccolo Machiavelli. So we are going to talk about it. We had a brief understanding during the bird view analysis. Now we are going to have a detailed understanding. It's a very simple thing. Machiavelli, Italian Renaissance thinker, historian, politician, diplomat, philosopher, humanist, writer. The major work, Prince, and you can connect it with Kautilya's Arthashastra, treatise on political power and statecraft. And see, ultimately, what Machiavelli is talking about, he's talking about pursuit of power. In a just war theory, we are talking about pursuit of peace, pursuit of justice. But here, Machiavelli is talking about pursuit of power and practical politics. See, if you look at Socrates until the Augustine, all these philosophers, they are talking from individual perspective. I mean to say that the morality at individual level. But here Machiavelli talks about morality at state level, at the country level. It means that here it is practical politics. Is talking about practical policy. Usually Machiavelli gives prominence to the power. Ultimately, according to him, if your actions or your decisions gives you power, then those actions are ethical. If it's not giving you power, that is unethical. There's a simple understanding. Power over morality. Power is above the morals. Power is above the ethical consideration. This is what he tells that. See, the reason he's telling this is that, so if I have that power, I am a ruler. If I have that power, then I can give a stable government. Power is there. If I have power, I can give the stability, stable government, stability. When there is a stability, then eventually this will help in welfare of the citizen. And welfare of the citizen, it means that it is going to help every single person in my country. So eventually this will go to the individual level also. So at the state level, at the community level, the welfare is going to reach to the individual level. If you look at the Socrates, Aristotle, they are talking about morals at individual level. I have to, if I am making a decision, that has to be based on virtues. This is what virtue ethics is talking about. It means that individual level, I am in, this is making me ethical. And at individually, in a society, in a community, there are 100 people, and virtue ethics is, they are making all these 100 people a moral beings. So everybody become moral being, community becomes moral, and all the communities in a country become moral, the entire country become moral. So from bottom up approach, virtue exists. But in Machiavelli, it is top-down approach. If power, the ruler has a very strong power. If he is very strong, then he can give stability. If there is a stability, we can expect welfare. If there is a welfare, that can be transcend to the community level, that can be transcend to the individual level also. So here, practical politics, this is going to lead to the well-being, and this is going to lead to the stability, this is going to lead to the security of the state. And here what he's prioritizing, he's prioritizing common good over individual morality. All other philosophers, philosophies we talked about till now, they are focusing on individual morality. What is right, what is wrong, you have to choose it, you have to make a decision. Now I am not making my decision, my prime minister is making a decision, and because of his, there will be welfare in the country, and there will be welfare in the community, and this is going to reach at the individual level also. So it's a top down approach. Till now we have talked a bottom up approach, now we are talking about top down approach. This is what Machiavelli's ideas are. So let's talk about some of the aspect of Machiavellian ethics. So first is consequentialist approach. Consequential approach, it means that, see, actions are judged by see, whatever the actions, it is not judged by virtues, it is not judged by divine command. The ancient philosopher, they talked about virtues, and the medieval philosopher, they talked about religious theology. So here your morality, ethical consideration is based, ancient based on virtues, and in medieval philosophy it is based on a love of God or the theology, religious doctrines. But according to Machiavelli, if any of these actions, if these actions are giving me power, then those are considered as ethical. It is not about virtues, it is not about a divine command, it is the power. If consequence of my actions are giving me power, if I am getting power or I am consolidating power, then those are considered as ethical according to the Machiavelli. So consequentialist approach. Now the second philosophy or the idea of Machiavelli is that practical morality for rulers. So he told that all this morality, everything, use it to gain power. If morality, ethical consideration, if these moral aspects giving you power, then follow this. If not, reject those things. It is not required. Ultimately, he's talking about pursuit of power only. So whatever promise, whatever ethical consideration, so there should be a practicality to it. What is that practicality? Practical morality. He talks about practical morality. Practical morality is nothing but if it helps you to gain power, then it is ethical. And next he talks about another concept, political immorality or skillful immorality. Skillful immorality is that these moral concepts, all these things, these are for the citizens. It is not for the king. Kings, rulers, no morals. But subjects, yes, they have to follow the morals. So there is, it is called political amorality or skillful immorality. I am giving moral consideration, moral standards to the people, but me being a ruler, I don't need that because my focus is stability, my focus is security of the state. So how can I give that security, how can I give the stability if I am strong? So whatever makes me strong, whatever gives me power, I am going to consider that. So the concept of political amorality or skillful immorality. And the next idea he gave is lion and fox. Ruler must, he should have the combination of attributes of lion and attributes of fox. Attributes of lion, it means that strength. Attributes of fox, it means that cunning. Some situation you have to you have to showcase this attribute of lion. Some situation you have to showcase the attribute of fox. Ultimately, why are you doing this? Ultimately, in order to retain power. So whatever works, you focus on these things. The attributes of lion and fox. So use force discreetly and manipulate appearances whenever it is needed. Showcase as a lion, showcase as a fox, whatever it is required to retain the power, do it. Ultimately, he's talking about pursuit of power, the practical politics. And he talks about fear versus love. There are some philosophers, they tell that ruler should be philosopher, you should have justice, compassion, all these things. And there are some philosopher, they're extreme philosopher, they talks about ruler should have ultimate control. So these kind of discussions over there, and he tells that ruler should have that both these ideas, both you should be loved, both you should be feared, then only you can have the power. So ultimately what he says that, see, if you cannot able to have both, if one cannot have both, it is safer to be feared than loved. So these are some of the ideas or ideologies of Machiavelli. The first, it is consequential approach. So whatever gives you power, that is ethical, that is moral. If it's not, that is unethical. And he talked about practical morality, and he talked about political immorality, political amorality or skillful immorality. He talked about the idea of lion and fox. He talked about fear versus love. If you cannot able to if you cannot make people to love you, at least, or it is safer to be fear than loved. I think this is it with respect to Machiavelli. This gives the understanding whatever that is required for this examination. So we have finished medieval thinkers also, medieval philosophers also. In the next video, we are going to talk about modern philosophers. Modern philosophers, there are so many philosophers. It is going to take maybe 2 3 videos, and then at last we have an Indian philosopher, the Eastern philosophies. May most probably 5 6 videos we are going to cover this modern philosophy. And thank you so much for listening. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good time.